life in 3 dimensions got me bent and got me twisted. I know I done said a lot, but I should probably stop pretending. I don't really hold the key and I can't really push a button. I just step up to the mic and try my very best to bust it, but I ran out of breath. It's tight in my chest, my feet just might fail. I can't stand the pressure.
What's going on, everyone? It's me, David Phipps, and you're listening to Racially Speaking, and it's just me today. If you've been listening to the show for a long time, usually we focus on just having back and forth conversations. I usually have a co-host, John Mark Walker, and or guest joining me, but today it's just me, and I've only done this one other time, and when I did that, I said that I didn't know if I'd ever do it again, but nevertheless, here we are. I actually heard back from enough of you saying that you thought it might be valuable to, semi-regularly hear from me and or John Mark on short little takes here on the podcast when things happen more in real time so that we can respond. There's pros and cons to taking time to respond and having a well thought out conversation versus in the moment responding to big news stories. So we typically err on the side of waiting a while, not necessarily intentionally. A lot of times that's just due to time constraint, but I do see the value every once in a while in responding to things more quickly. And this isn't necessarily super quick because as what I'm going to talk about has been happening over the last couple weeks and beyond, I wanted to jump on here and give you some quick, raw but well thought out. I believe I've done my research and thought a lot about what I'm going to say here, and just give some thoughts on something that we have been very vocal about on the podcast, but don't claim to be experts. We are well-informed non-experts, I'll just say that. And that, of course, as you can see from the title of the episode, is the gun violence epidemic that, you should know by now is a thing happening in the United States. And so a few things with this. I'll say again, I classify myself with this topic as a well-informed non-expert. And with that said, I want to intentionally give you some thoughts from that perspective because I don't think that you have to be an expert. And I think it's actually wrong to think that you have to be an expert to speak into this at all. That doesn't mean, put your foot in your mouth and don't care about it. No, I'm not saying that, but I do think this is a human issue, and the internet can be your friend. It's not always the enemy. It can also be the enemy, but there are ways to be well-informed, and I encourage you to reach out to people that are experts and have those conversations with people that know a lot more than you. That's what I do. And with that said, I am in the works of having actual experts in this space come on and do episodes here, longer form with me, with John Mark. And that was already in the works before what I'm about to say and address. But I wanted to speak into this a little bit because I think this is, is life and death, gun violence. Life and death literally is a life and death issue. And I think it's important to talk about, not skirt around, and to fight the urge to be paralyzed by the feeling of helplessness. Yes, it does feel helpless in a lot of ways, absolutely, but I think that there are things to understand and get to the bottom of. Excuse me. And I'm very passionate about speaking into this. Of course, this is Racially Speaking. I'm not even really going to spend today talking about all of the racial implications. Yes, I believe gun violence and mass shootings are affecting communities of color disproportionately. I think that's an objective fact. You can look up the statistics of how that actually is true and how gun laws are made or not made along racial lines. And so we can go into that more. We've done that a little bit. We can go into that more at a later episode. But for right now, I think the biggest question is this something that is fixable, or are all these mass shootings, which the numbers are just staggering and climbing, I think are above 120, 130 even this year in the United States. Is this preventable? And are the people that have the power to prevent it actually wrong or evil? And I'm not calling somebody evil personally when I say that. I say that because that's the question I think a lot of people are asking. Are these lawmakers actually complicit and simply not making changes or doing the right thing because of stuff like money and power? And I think that those are completely fair questions to ask, but I'm never going to be one to just see the Instagram or headline or Instagram post or Twitter feed and just jump on that and not think through it and say, yeah, these people are all bad, because there's too much nuance in there that I think it would be irresponsible to skirt around. But I'm also a believer in calling a spade and speaking truth especially when it affects people at the most basic level of human dignity, and that's life and death. So I also think that everyone has a different threshold, and I'll also say I think that threshold should have been reached for everybody at this point. And of course, what I'm saying is these gun violence issues and laws are affecting the most vulnerable in our country. That's, of course, children. Children are dying, I believe, because of too loose of gun laws. There's different things we could discuss in there, but there's too much evidence that shows that is just an actual fact. And like I said, I'm going to keep it short today, and I'm going to focus on Tennessee, where, of course, within the last 2 weeks, there was a horrific mass shooting in Tennessee at an elementary school where 3 adults, I believe it was 3 and 3 children, were gunned down by a shooter during the school day in a school. And one of the big things out there are the debate on red flag laws, which basically are laws put in place to enable lawmakers and police officers to either remove guns from someone or prevent someone from purchasing guns because of mental health status, specifically if they are in counseling or receiving medical attention for a mental health issue. So in other words, it's to prevent them from obtaining weapons when they're in a certain mental state. And so, in my opinion, only good things can come from that. And I think supporters of gun laws or stricter gun laws and supporters of Second Amendment rights should unanimously agree on that. And I know many people think that is actually the case, and people do agree on that. And I'm going to come back to that in a second. So I'll say that everything I can see and hear from people that know what they're talking about, it shows that Tennessee has opposed making red flag laws. So there's that. That's how I would say it's pretty inarguable in my opinion that is a glaring way that people can see how this could have been prevented. Of course, the shooter was in the state receiving mental health treatment. So was the type of person exactly who these red flag laws would have prevented from purchasing a gun. But because they weren't in place, that's not what happened. And then people are dead because of it, children. So that's one. And I'll also say this, that's one glaring thing in my opinion. And also, I'm not a law expert, but these people are all elected. So I do think that, people, and I'm not a Tennessean, but we should be able to speak into issues that affect us who elect these people. And if you saw the video, and again, I'm not just going to say I saw an Instagram post and I'm going to speak on this, but Tim Burchett, I think it's probably Burchett, U.S. representative in Tennessee. There's an Instagram post out there with him saying that we're never going to fix it. Criminals are criminals. We're never going to fix this issue. And he even throws out some Bible verses and his Christian faith to stand behind that. And that's one thing. That's fine. I think that it's fair to criticize that take alone, but then it's hard to swallow that when he can also, in another segment, or plenty of other segments out there where he's interviewed, knows how to swiftly act when he's fearful of children in his state being exposed to the transgender community, LGBTQ community, and learning all of these different things about those people groups and communities. To me, that usurps faith, whatever you believe in, what you believe about education. To me, the focus there is, okay, so you do want to protect kids. You do know that you can do something when you see it affecting you or your bottom line. And speaking of bottom line, anybody can look this up. This isn't just taking my word for it. It's easy to find who the NRA is supporting. And as you can imagine, Tim Burkett receives a substantial amount from the NRA for his campaign, or whatever you want to call it. He gets financial backing from the NRA. Marsha Blackburn, I believe, is the senator or governor in Tennessee, receives tons of support from the NRA. So, all of this, the NRA, there's receipts. Like, you can literally see how much money they give to these states that have the looser gun laws. And this should probably go without saying, but I'll say that it's just almost impossible to take what these people say seriously, knowing these things are going on behind the scenes. And that's not saying that everyone advocating for stricter gun laws are some, virtue-driven or moralistic, higher-minded people. But in this case, I'm going to take the side of people advocating to save lives. And that's, I think, what is going on here, and what can often be missed by somebody that doesn't want to wade into the waters of this being too complicated. Because I do think there's a lot that is above my head. I don't think I know. But there's plenty out there that's not above any of our heads. And I think it's okay to call this kind of stuff out. I mentioned that I'm not going to... This is so, I think, more all-encompassing that I don't even think we need to talk a ton about the racial element. But if you've been following this story at all, Tennessee made this a racial element explicitly in front of the world to see just last week when they expelled Representative Justin Jones and Justin Pearson, respectively representatives of Nashville and Memphis, Tennessee, for leading a peaceful protest at the House for stricter gun laws. We can talk about, laws they could have broken and all that. I'd like to play devil's advocate for a second, that was wrong of them to do. I believe it falls way more under the right for peaceful protest, but let's just say that was wrong of them to do. There's still a explicit racist narrative behind what happened to them. You can look all the way back to pretty much 1860s, right around Civil War time, that representatives were expelled. I think there was one in 2003 for somebody that, it was an outlying circumstance where he was charged with racketeering, fraud, all these things. But these two men were expelled. It just doesn't happen. Broken law or not, it just doesn't happen. And it was an egregiously, unless someone can come up with another reason, which I've seen zero people saying another reason why this happened to these two men, other than what they're speaking up about and the color of their skin. They made it a race issue explicitly, because if you haven't followed the story, it was these two men, Justin Pearson and Justin Jones, and their white ally, who is also a representative. I can't remember her name. It's escaping me. Gloria Johnson. Gloria Johnson's her name. All three were locking arms, and all three leading the same peaceful protest together. But Gloria Johnson, who no criticism on her part, actually an applaud for being an ally, but is a white woman, was not expelled for doing the exact same thing. Representatives Justin Jones and Justin Pearson were both expelled. Of course, young black lawmakers were the ones expelled in this case. So, Tennessee made it about race. And as I'm doing this, as of now, at least, I believe one, if not both, have been reinstated, which was, assumed would happen, which is great. But nevertheless, wanted to put out the egregious inconsistency there and how it is these, all of this is related to race. In some regard, which we again will go to. I'll go into this a lot more when I have my friends on to come who are experts and know way more about this. And I'll pick their brains to talk more about these elements, of course. But I wanted to say that. And so I don't want to just stop there. And I think stuff can be done by even just understanding these narratives. But the last two things I wanted to do, and this is something everyone can do, and hopefully this is helpful. It was helpful for me personally. Something they did on the Higher Learning podcast a few weeks ago. I didn't just take their word for it. I went and did it myself, and you can do it too. You can go on the NRA website, look up any state, all of their gun laws are listed, and also all of their proposed bills are listed, and you can see what passed and failed. And I think that is extremely important because I think it shows what is actually happening beyond headlines and beyond statistics, all of this stuff. I think it's really helpful, and it's also extremely frustrating once you read it. So I'm going to read a couple just out loud. And so these are proposed bills in Tennessee specifically on the NRA's website. They've got it listed. Proposed bills. And these are just two that I'm gonna look at because I think it's important that have actually failed. This is Bill HB 237. Okay, and this was proposed in Tennessee. Requires a person to obtain an enhanced or concealed handgun permit to carry a handgun in certain counties. That's it. It failed. Not pushed forward. Failed. And then, so let me read that again. Requiring a person to obtain an enhanced or concealed handgun permit to carry a handgun in certain counties. I don't see how that infringes on any Second Amendment rights. If anything, I feel like that, it infringes because it makes you get a permit, but I just feel like that would make it safer for everybody, and it, if anything, would help gun owners move their agendas forward, even if we're going to be all on the same page. But I think the most concerning one that did not pass that I see on here is right after that SB 17, HB 380. I don't know what the numbers mean, but this one's a little lengthier. Requires certain departments to create programs to reduce gun violence in communities and encourages a gun safety program to be distributed through hospital emergency departments and primary care centers. It also requires the Department of Health to submit an annual report to the legislature, counties, and municipalities on the public health impacts of gun violence in communities. NRA encourages our lawmakers to focus on supporting policies that protect the gun rights of law-abiding citizens to defend themselves and their families. SB 17, HB 380 failed in the Senate Judiciary Committee, has yet to be scheduled to in the House Criminal Justice Subcommittee. And so if you're lost, I might take a few times reading this, so I'm going to read it one more time. Requires that certain departments create programs to reduce gun violence in communities and encourages a gun safety program to be distributed through hospital emergency departments and primary care centers. It also requires the Department of Health to submit an annual report to the legislature, counties, and municipalities on the public health impacts of gun violence in communities. NRA encourages our lawmakers to focus on supporting policies that protect the rights of law-abiding citizens to defend themselves and their families. Guys, I don't understand the benefit of this failing, not being passed. Why would gun owners, reach out and let me know. But why would you not support something that creating a program to reduce gun violence? Why would you not want to reduce gun violence in communities and encourage a gun safety program to be distributed in hospital emergency departments and primary care centers? Why would that not help everybody? Why would a responsible gun owner not want people that would give gun owners a bad reputation and name to not be held in check for the betterment of everybody? It also requires the Department of Health to submit an annual report. Why would you not want reports out there? Would this not help everyone understand what's actually going on? I think it would actually help Second Amendment supporters. And it certainly would. I don't understand why something that would help, whose main objective is to reduce gun violence, would not help everybody on both sides. And then, of course, the one I read before that requires a person to obtain a concealed handgun permit to carry a handgun in certain counties. All this stuff is, in Tennessee, it looks like they're moving backwards and making it literally less safe. And it's hard not to follow the breadcrumbs and see where the money leads and where power is exercised or not exercised. Too many common factors with all of this. But again, I'm not the expert, but I'm so passionate about the justice implications of what is going on with all of this. And I'm excited, sad that we have to have these conversations, but excited to talk to some people very soon on here that are gonna, I think, give some really good expertise on what can be done with all of this. In the short term, two things I just encourage anybody listening right now to do what I just did. Look up stuff. Look up the NRA's website. Look up laws in your state. Understand what your state laws are. Many of you are in Virginia like me, and I believe, it looks like we have red flag laws, which I'm thankful for. But do your due diligence and call your representatives. Call representatives, I think, of other states. That makes an impact as well. Attend town halls. Do whatever you can. I am attempting to get involved with an organization called Moms Demand. I know it says Moms Demand, but I've reached out to people that know more than me, and anybody. It's led by moms, but anybody, parent or not, male or female, can join. Any person can join. And so I'm attempting. I don't even know what it looks like yet. I'm just putting it out there. But they're a fantastic organization. I do know that, and there's chapters typically everywhere. Regardless of where you live, and I'm attempting to be part of that. I've already joined, downloaded the app, signed up for anything I could, and I'm attending something in May in our area. Reach out to me if you want to know more about that, of just a kind of a meet and greet, understanding what the advocacy looks like in my area with combating gun violence. So I encourage you to do that. momsdemand.org, I believe. Check out their website, their stuff, support them, or any other helpful organizations along those lines. I think these are two things you can do: be more informed and, get involved with people that know more than you to do much. Don't do it alone. But also, please, hopefully it's really clear on this podcast that we just encourage you to be active. It doesn't mean you have to be the person leading a march. It just means, please don't be complicit. Understand these are real things. And very important conversations to have, and that's just what I always want to encourage you all to do. I know John Mark would say the same thing. Not that, certainly not to take our word for it by any means on all these things we talk about, but that you would be encouraged to hear what we say, but then also do your own work and become an advocate, how you feel fit. So thank you guys for listening to the short episode. I think we'll do this kind of intermittently with dropping in on even just a single monologue and keep it, under 30, 20 minutes or so, to get more of this stuff out to you guys quicker. But of course, we will not be moving away from doing our regular long form conversations, because those are kind of the bread and butter of our podcast. Lastly, of course, please join our Patreon. Check out our Patreon page. We would love your support for as low as $1 a month, so $12 a year. You can help support our podcast, support what we're doing. It certainly gives us even more motivation to get stuff out quicker in a more timely manner. We're working hard on that, even if it looks like we're not at times. We truly, really are. But currently, right now, all of the money is going towards providing money for first-generation college students of color to purchase textbooks. So that's where 100% of the money is currently going. Please check out our Patreon page. It's linked in the episode. And yeah, we would love your support. Thank you guys so much for listening. Hope you guys have a great day.
The nightmare might scare you no worse than reality. They hunt you by day, R.I.P. Ahmaud Arbery. Everybody got a time, but that's less than comforting. I hope I'm alive by the time they choose to comfort me. Mosquitoes in the vein, or leeches on my soul. This money on my mind is a fracture of my bones. You get crippled by continuing existence like a ghost. And they wonder why we drink, and they wonder why we smoke, and they wonder why we think that everything's a joke. I'm shocked that we can sleep, must be the thought of letting go.